Hello and welcome to E&I UK and Europe edition. I'm Giancarlo Matera, reporting from London. We'll be bringing you news reports from around the United Kingdom and Europe, and we have live reporters with us today on standby, ready to give their reports. On our program today, the EU and Britain seal the post-Brexit trade deal. Thousands of trapped mass at Dover in cross-channel chaos. Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine en route to EU member states. And our first of our live reporters joining us today will be Love Ann Season. Hello, Love Ann. What will you be reporting for us this week?
So basically, it's researchers in Scotland have said that they have cracked the problem of when to dispose of a face mask.
Okay, thank you. We'll look forward to that story later in the show. Also joining us live today, we have Ashley Espiritu. Nice to see you again, Ashley. What story will you be bringing us today?
Hi Giancarlo, thank you for having me. Today I will be reporting on British pop legend Paul McCartney's new solo album release, and through this release, encourages people to take the COVID-19 vaccine.
Thank you very much. And from Europe, we are joined live by Christine Benedicto. Thank you so much for joining us live this week. What interesting news report do you have for us?
Hello, Giancarlo. I'll be providing an update on what's happening in ski resorts in Switzerland.
Thank you so much. Also from Europe is our EBC Italy correspondent. Live is Jasmine Jamora. Nice to have you also, Jasmine. What story do you have for us later in the program?
Hi, Giancarlo. Thank you. So I will be talking about the three areas that Italy has been divided for the emergency decree.
Thank you so much. So we have some interesting stories later in the show, and we will also end today's show, as always, with our view from our window. And this week comes from the Sky Garden in London. So stay tuned for more of that. But first, it's our news headlines. The EU and Britain seal post-Brexit trade deal. Britain and the European Union finally struck a trade deal on Thursday after 10 months of intense negotiations allowed them to soften the economic shock of Brexit. Here's the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson with the announcement.
And so I'm very pleased to tell you this afternoon that we have completed the biggest trade deal yet, worth £660 billion a year, a comprehensive Canada-style free trade deal between the UK and I want to stress that although, of course, the arguments with our European friends and partners were sometimes fierce, this is, I believe, a good deal for the whole of Europe and for our friends and partners. A deal that will protect jobs across this country, a deal that will allow goods, UK goods and components to be sold without tariffs and without quotas in the EU market, a deal which will, if anything, allow our companies and our exporters to do even more business with our European friends, and yet which achieves something that the people of this country instinctively knew was doable, but which they were told was impossible.
Britain formally left the European Union in January after a divisive referendum in 2016. The first country to split from the political and economic project that was born as the continent rebuilt in the aftermath of World War II. The final 2,000-page agreement was held up by a last-minute dispute over fishing, as both sides haggled over the access EU fishermen would get to Britain's waters after the end of the year. But London remains tied to the EU rules during a transition period that runs until midnight on December 31, when the UK will leave the single market and the customs union. It will then face tariffs on cross-channel commerce, despite breaking off half a century of close partnership. A few Londoners reacted to the news, that the United Kingdom and Europe had concluded a last-minute trade deal on Thursday. Let's take a look at some of their reactions.
There is a deal. It would have been a disaster if there had been no deal. So very pleased that there is a deal. Still sad that we're leaving Europe. I'd prefer to be staying in Europe, but relieved that it's over. And now the debate is over and we need to move on. So that's how I feel about it.
I think it's a relief that we've finally got one after all these years, but it sort of begs the question as to whether this arrangement is going to be better than the arrangement that we had before we left the European Union. And it seems like the compromises that we've made that are necessary to get a deal sort of make me wonder whether it was worth it to begin with at all. No, and this is what's so frustrating. So I'm currently 21 and I've had no say in this process at all. So 4 years on, the country is now moving into a position where I actually think that a lot of people, including a lot of people my age, there's a lot of dissatisfaction with the fact that we've had no say in how this is conducted.
Leaders around the continent were quick to herald the 11th hour accord that heads off the threat of Britain crashing out of the EU after 47 years of shared history with no follow-on rules. Thousands of trucks mass at Dover in cross-channel chaos. France and Britain reopened cross-channel travel on Wednesday after a 48-hour ban, when a potentially more contagious variant of the virus was identified in Britain. Thousands of European truckers spent a fourth night sleeping in their cabs of their vehicles as they were stuck close to the major cross-channel port of Dover, where the drivers wait to pass a COVID test as required by France for travel. The major transit hub reopened following an agreement between London and Paris to allow haulers stuck in the UK to leave the country if they could produce a negative coronavirus test that was less than 72 hours old. Much of Europe had swiftly banned British travellers, and France's decision to block freight movement sparked fears of food shortages. Germany's Lufthansa said it would airlift fresh fruit and vegetables to Britain, with traffic log-jammed at the south coast port for days to come. As dramatic images showed masses of lorries backed up in Dover, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson was under intense pressure to resolve the deadlock. Around 6,000 trucks were waiting early Wednesday evening to cross the border, according to Britain's Department of Transport, including 3,750 vehicles parked at the Old Manston Airport, which is also a COVID testing site. The others are stuck on a nearby road in the southeast county of Kent. Between 700 and 800 were parked alongside the motorway heading out of London via Kent, and around 3,000 were at the nearby disused airport at Manston, where drivers are being tested. As night fell on Tuesday, many drivers at Manston sounded their horns for more than half an hour in protest over the delays. The massive testing operation, which is being bolstered by the military, began late on Wednesday. A team of 26 French firefighters arrived early on Thursday in Dover with 10,000 tests to help the British and accelerate the return of European citizens, according to French ambassador to Britain, Catherine Colonna. The measures imposed on haulers have caused concern over shortages of some fresh food products over the holiday period, already dampened by the strict coronavirus restrictions. In the wake of the chaos at Dover and in anticipation of more delays caused by Britain's departure from the European Union, the port's chief executive has called for £33 million or 36 million euros in funding for passport checks. Pfizer-BioNTech's vaccine is now en route to the European Union member states. The first batches of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine have started to be delivered throughout the European Union as the region prepares to roll out the vaccination starting on December 27. 3 refrigerated trucks left the plant in northeast Belgium on Wednesday, escorted by police cars. The green light for the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine was given by the European Union's medicine regulator last Monday. As fears over the new strain of the coronavirus grew, Many countries, including in Europe, started to impose a travel ban on Britain in order to contain the spread of the virus. As from Wednesday, some countries have started to ease the restrictions by replacing, for example, the travel ban with a mandatory negative COVID-19 test result of passengers. The co-founder of BioNTech has in the meantime stated that their vaccine is highly likely to work against the mutated strain detected in Britain and otherwise can be adapted in 6 weeks. The European Union is due by January 6 to decide on the vaccine candidate made by Moderna. It's time for a break now, but please come back for more ENI UK and Europe edition.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced, eagle news, because we live in interesting times.
Welcome back to ENI UK and Europe edition. Now for some more interesting stories from around the United Kingdom this week. Face masks have become a daily essential item nowadays. Joining us live is Love Ann Season with some details on an innovative mask. Hello, Love Ann.
Hi, Giancarlo, and thank you. So, since the pandemic started, face masks have become a must-have item for everyone. The question is how long until it starts to become less effective? So after studying a ticklish question during the COVID-19 pandemic, researchers in Scotland say they have cracked the problem of when to actually throw away a face mask. An engineer at Scottish company Insignia Technologies said that face masks need frequent rotations to remain effective, but hardly any attention has been given to whether people change them regularly enough. Now they want to educate face mask users the importance of using recommended guidelines when it comes to face masks. What the company has decided to do is to use the technology to come up with a color-changing label that could be applied on PPE like face masks and aprons and will ensure the PPE is being used responsibly and it isn't worn too long or thrown away too quickly. Now the label will change color to indicate when a disposable face mask has reached the end of its recommended lifespan or when a reusable mask requires to be changed. Now in August, researchers at the University of Edinburgh found that someone without a mask who stood 2 meters from a coughing person was exposed to 10 times more virus droplets than someone who wore a mask half a meter from a coughing person. Now, Giancarlo, tests found that the number of droplets was more than 1,000 times lower when wearing even a single layer cotton mask. Now, research done since the beginning of the year showed that the transmission is completely through the droplets expelled from the mouth of a person, and the face mask can really stop the spreading of this. Now, a physicist from the University of Edinburgh School of Engineering is looking forward to the future of face coverings and noted that there is still room for a massive innovation. Let's listen in.
Massive innovation. I think what we have learned this year has for sure changed the way we will design and manufacture face coverings in the future. That's for sure. There's so much that we know now that we did not know 8 months ago. So the mask is not preventing air to go through, but it is actually filtering some of the droplets in the air. And they cannot filter all of the droplets, so we need to target which droplet size do we want to filter. So in the future, we will be able to design masks that filter exactly the droplets that can actually carry the virus.
Back to you, Giancarlo.
Thank you so much, Lavan. Could you also please tell us a little bit more about how this actual color changing label actually works?
Yeah, of course, Giancarlo. So when packs are opened, the label's time temperature indicator is activated, and then the label is applied to the PPE, such as face masks and aprons. Now it changes color to indicate when the end of the recommended time has been reached, as I mentioned earlier. Now the labels are yellow to begin with, and it will gradually turn into blue as they lose its effectiveness. The color change process can take 4 to 6 hours, and this is the recommended time frame on how long masks can be worn. And this is according to the Center of the Evidence-Based Medicine. Giancarlo?
Thank you so much, Slavan, for bringing us this very interesting story in these interesting times that we are in.
Thank you, Giancarlo. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I'm Love Ann Season, and we live in interesting times.
Okay, now we'd like to welcome once again another one of our London correspondents. This time it's Ashley Espiritu, who has more details on Paul McCartney's story. Hello, Ashley.
Hello, thank you, Giancarlo. British pop legend Paul McCartney on Friday urged people to get vaccinated against the coronavirus as he celebrated the release of a new solo album crafted during this year's lockdown. The former Beatle, who revealed in October he had resurrected unfinished music to complete the record, said the internet had allowed so-called anti-vaxxers misleading messages to take hold. I will have the vaccine and I'd like to encourage people to get it too, he told BBC Radio. There used to be anti-vaccine people, that was okay, that was their choice. But with the internet now, these things really take hold, and so you do get these people who won't take it, he said. The new album, McCartney 3, released a week later than originally planned, is his third eponymous solo album. It follows months of work at his home studio in Sussex in southern England on previously started and new songs. It has all been written, produced and performed by McCartney, who has said he had not intended to release an album in 2020 until the pandemic forced him to, as he stayed at home for months. The former Beatles frontman had been set to headline this year's Glastonbury Festival on its 50th anniversary, but it was cancelled due to the pandemic. Britain imposed a month's long lockdown from late March as COVID-19 first swept the country, which has now seen more than 65,000 deaths due to the virus, among the worst tolls in Europe. McCartney's new release coincides with the 50th anniversary of his first solo endeavour, McCartney, released as the Fab Four went their separate ways in 1970. A follow-up, McCartney 2, came a decade later. The latest collection of tracks was mostly built from live takes of McCartney on vocals and guitar piano before overdubbing with his bass playing and drumming. Pictures of the album were shot by McCartney's daughter, the photographer Mary McCartney, with additional images by his nephew Sonny McCartney and some that he took himself on his phone. Keeping the photography in the family mirrors how the pop icon illustrated earlier solo albums, with his late wife Linda McCartney shooting the artwork for McCartney 2. Linda also took many of the photos displayed on the gatefold covering of the original 1970s McCartney album. Back to you, Giancarlo.
Thank you, Ashley. With a legendary artist like Paul McCartney encouraging his audience to take the vaccine, what is the latest update on the vaccine and the pandemic there in the UK?
Well, Giancarlo, Britain has been one of the worst hit countries in Europe by the virus, with nearly 65,000 deaths from some 1.9 million cases. On Wednesday, London and surrounding areas were placed under stricter measures to curb the spread of the virus because of concern about a rise in cases. More than 137,000 people in Britain have received a first dose of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID vaccine in the week since it began, the government announced on Wednesday. The Department of Health and Social Care said 137,897 people had received the jab since December 8th. Of those, 108,000 in England, the most populous of the UK's 4 nations. Prime Minister Boris Johnson told lawmakers he was very pleased with the good start with the rollout of the vaccination. The Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine was the first coronavirus shot to be authorised for use by the UK's independent medicines regulator. Patients required 2 doses, 21 days apart. Britain has ordered 40 million doses of the jab, enough to vaccinate 20 million people, with 800,000 in the first batch. First in line are people aged 80 and above, and frontline health and social care workers will be next. Giancarlo?
Thank you, Ashley, for bringing us that news report. We hope to see you again next week.
Thank you again for having me, Giancarlo. I'm Ashley Spiritu, EBC London correspondent, and we live in interesting times.
Okay, it's time for another break now, but please come back for some more ENI UK and Europe edition.
Arnie Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net25.
Welcome back to ENI UK and Europe edition. Now for some more interesting stories from around Europe this week. First, we go to Switzerland to hear about what's been happening on its ski slopes. With us today is Christine Benedicto. Hi, Christine.
Thank you, Giancarlo. Switzerland's ski resorts have been on alert even before the beginning of the ski season. They've been working hard to ensure compliance with national rules in terms of health and safety. But as the health situation in the country remains tense, it's still uncertain how things will actually turn out in the end for this season, because due to unsatisfactory improvement of the health situation nationwide, the government recently decided to close restaurants, museums, and other entertainment and leisure facilities. And for people hoping to hit the ski slopes this time of the year, well, their hopes diminished in some cantons. We have the examples of Schwyz and Lucerne, who in the past couple of days ordered the closures of their ski lifts. And the discovery of the new strain of the virus gives even less visibility in terms of the ski resort's short and midterm future this season. To contain the virus, Switzerland has actually suspended air links with the UK and South Africa and imposed a 10-day retroactive quarantine for anyone who's arrived from the UK and South Africa since December 14th. To have a better idea of what it's like to be in one of the country's ski resorts right now, we have the example of Verbier. Verbier is a popular winter destination in the Swiss Alps. Ordinarily, tourists come from all over the country and the world, but it's important to note that more than 20% of those tourists actually normally come from Britain, and most arrive around this time of the year. Due to the pandemic, there are ski instructors who say that they are currently only working a fifth of their normal working hours. Many people describe the atmosphere in the village as very quiet compared to a normal year-end ski week. Some hotel clients from Britain also decided to leave the country immediately before the travel ban had even started. For those who have decided to stay and were able to stay, they have to comply with a 10-day quarantine rule. Hotels now rely on Swiss tourists and sincerely hope that February and March 2021 will save the season. That's the update from Switzerland. Giancarlo?
Thank you, Christine. If travelers from the UK cannot enter, what is the situation for those who are already in Switzerland and wish to return to the United Kingdom?
Well, as from Thursday, December 24th, UK and South African residents who wish to return home from Switzerland were actually given the possibility to travel back home. Strict health measures are imposed during their trip so that they are kept apart from other travelers, even on their way to the airport. And airline companies also have their own set of requirements to follow. Back to you, Giancarlo.
Thank you for joining us today from Geneva, Christine.
Thank you, Giancarlo. Reporting from Geneva, Switzerland, I'm Christine Benedicto for Eagle News International. We live in interesting times.
Okay, we stay in Europe now. We go to Italy's emergency decree in its fight against the pandemic second wave and dividing the country into 3 risk zones. We have with us Jasmine Jamora joining us live today. Hello, Jasmine.
Hello, Giancarlo. Thank you. So Italy has been divided into 3 areas under a new emergency decree to combat the second wave of COVID-19. The 3-level system is based on a color code according to the intensity of the epidemic, dividing the nation's 20 regions into red for high risk, orange for medium risk, and yellow for low risk zones. And in this holiday season, the Italian government has redefined the rules for the specific days that will make the whole of Italy a red zone or orange. Red zones are on the days of 24, 25, 26, 27, and 31 of December, and January 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. Then orange zone will be on 28, 29, and 30 of December and 4th of January, while yellow zone are in the days of 21, 22, 23 of December. No movement will be allowed between regions from December 21 to January 6, other than for work, health, or necessity, or if you are a resident returning home. There is a curfew applied in all these zones between 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. And on New Year's Eve, December 31, will be between 10 a.m. to 7 a.m. of January 1, 2021. Back to you, Giancarlo.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. Can you tell us a bit more about the restriction measures in this 3-tier system?
Yes, Giancarlo. So under the red zone, the most restrictive measures under the decree, including local lockdowns, will apply here. People will be prohibited from entering or leaving or moving to other towns or cities within the zones, and may only leave their homes for reasons of necessity, such as work, health, or taking children to school. In orange zone, restaurants are closed, but shops remain open. Distance learning will apply to senior high school students. People can move freely within the municipality. It is forbidden to enter or leave the region if it is not necessary, such as work, health, or urgency. While in the yellow zone, there are no restrictions other than those imposed nationwide. Restaurants are open until 6 p.m. and shops stay open as normal. It is possible to move within the region and from one yellow region to another. Giancarlo.
Thank you so much, Jasmine, for joining us from Milan, Italy.
Thank you for having me. Reporting from EBC Milan, Italy, I am Jasmine Jamora, and we live in interesting times.
Okay, we're going to end today's show with our view from our window. And today, this panoramic view of London can be seen from London's popular location, the Sky Garden, which is on top of the Walkie-Talkie building. From this height, you're able to see some of London's most famous landmarks all at once. There can be seen the Tower Bridge, Tower of London, the Shard, and further into the distance, you can even see the London Eye and the Houses of Parliament. This video and view is courtesy of one of our live correspondents today, Ashley Espiritu. Thank you again, Ashley, for bringing us these amazing views of London. And that's it for our program today. We hope you stay safe, keep positive, as we continue to bring you news reports from around the United Kingdom and Europe next week. I'm Giancarlo Matera, and we live in interesting times.